So she moved me up a grade because she thought I wasn't fitting in, so now I'm even more not fitting in. I was getting good grades, you know, like all A's. My mom's like, you need stimulation. I'm like, no, I'm stimulated enough right now. That's for sure. And she said, you don't have a challenge, you need a challenge. So now I'm challenged, alright? I'm challenged to hold on to my lunch money because of all the big mooses who want to pound me because I'm a shrimpy dork and they think I'm smarter than them. But I don't think I'm smarter than them, I just did the stupid homework. If everyone else just did the stupid homework, they can move up a grade and get pounded too. Is there any more coffee? The Iron Giant. And now we got a signature edition, but I'll get to that later. Warning though, this video will have spoilers. If you have not seen this movie by now, honest to God, go watch it! So The Iron Giant is an animated film that came out back in 1999, 16 years ago. The movie's set in 1957 during the Cold War in a fictional town in Maine called Rockwell. We got Hogarth Hughes. He's a kid, you know, he's adventurous, he rides his bike, he explores the woods, he's a fun kid. So one day he's exploring the woods and out of nowhere this huge Iron Giant shows up and Hogarth ends up saving his life and now these two are just kind of friends. The scene where Hogarth really meets the Iron Giant is like an iconic scene at this point. How would you react if you suddenly got your own giant robot? You'd probably react how Hogarth did. He's like, I am now the luckiest kid in America! One of the many strong points of this movie is the bond that Hogarth forms with this Iron Giant. This giant crash landed on Earth, had no idea what he was doing, he lost all his memories, so he really doesn't know much about anything. So Hogarth kind of takes it on himself to teach him about life, essentially. I mean, he teaches him about feelings, emotions, and what it means to have a soul. This movie taught me what the word soul means. Of course, with this big giant robot crash landing on Earth, you know that the military is probably going to want to get involved with that. Enter Kent Mansley, one of the biggest dumbass douchebags ever put on screen. I really mean it. I mean, I've seen this movie a gazillion and a half times, and every time I see Kent on screen, I want to strangle him more and more. He's this paranoid government agent who's really like on to Hogarth. You know, he's like, you're hiding something. I'm gonna find this giant. Where's the giant? It gets to the point where he brings the whole army over to Rockwell to find this giant. Luckily though, we have Dean. Dean is awesome. He's like this junkyard artist dude. He collects scrap metal and he'll turn it into like works of art. So when Hogarth meets Dean, he's like, hey, can my Iron Giant stay with you for a few days? And Dean, although reluctant at first, he's like, yeah, sure, whatever. The scene where the whole army just shows up at Dean's doorstep and he's like, oh yeah, the metal man, let me show him to you. He brings them all inside and the giant's just kind of sitting there like one of the works of art that Dean has created. And Kent Mansley just gets all sorts of shit from the general about it. You just blew $1 million of Uncle Sam's dollars out of your butt! And it gets to the point where eventually Hogarth and the giant and Dean kind of form this friendship with each other. They're like, yeah, we know this giant is good. He doesn't mean any harm to anybody. But that scene with the deer, man, that's one of the scenes that really makes it hit home for you, shows you what this movie's all about. Hogarth and the giant, they're in the woods one day and they come across this deer. The giant kind of leans down, you know, to touch it, but then the deer just kind of prances away. And all of a sudden you hear this gunshot. These hunters have shot the deer. It's the scene where ultimately the giant learns about death. It's a really powerful scene, you know, it's sad. The giant wants to pick up the deer. Hogarth's like, don't do that, it's dead, dude. This movie also taught me about death. It's just a natural part of life. So far enough into the movie, the giant is, you know, learning how to kind of fit in within society because he rescues these two kids from falling to their deaths. That's when he really gets discovered, at least by the townspeople. They're like, yeah, oh my gosh, this giant is real and he's a good guy. But unfortunately, the military shows up and shit goes down. Because of fucking Kent Mansley! So you would think it's like the Iron Giant versus the military, there's gonna be like a battle, right? But the giant has learned from Hogarth that violence will just solve no problems. If anything, it'll create more problems. And that's exactly what happens. There's a point where the military actually gets the Iron Giant, he crashes on the ground, Hogarth's lying there unconscious, and the giant actually thinks that Hogarth is dead. Then somehow the giant actually gets his memory restored and he starts going apeshit and just wiping out all these tanks. He's like a Decepticon, just boom, boom, just going after the military, and they're just like no match for this thing. You get the feeling it's like, oh my god, that's what he was originally sent here for? It's a good thing he lost his memory. But Hogarth wakes up, he goes right in front of the giant, you brave soul. He goes, stop, wait a minute, and then he says those magical words, you are who you choose to be. That is deep, man. And so the giant just kind of snaps out of it. And the general kind of realizes that the only reason the giant was acting this way is because it was acting defensively. He only reacted when he was being fired upon. I mean, the submarine was getting ready to fire a nuke. If you don't shoot at him, he's harmless. And so the general's like, okay, all units stand down. But Kent Mansley, being the douchebag that he is, grabs the walkie-talkie right out of the general's hand. He's like, launch the missile now! That's why Kent is a dumbass. He didn't realize that the nuke is actually targeted at the giant. Where's the giant? It's right there in the town with all the people. So yeah, this nuke is just gonna come down and destroy the giant and the entire town. Yeah, nice move, Kent Mansley. So now we got a nuke headed straight for Rockwell, and this is the giant's time to shine. He makes the ultimate sacrifice. This is awesome. He kneels down to Hogarth. He's like, you stay, I go, no following. Which is the line that Hogarth said to the giant earlier in the film. So the giant flies up, he's flying in space all towards the missile. You hear the words, you are who you choose to be, echoing in his head. He's like,
Superman.
And then you see the explosion in the sky. The giant has sacrificed himself to save the town, making the Iron Giant a complete hero. And that's like the climax of the movie. The town is grateful, Hogarth is sad, and Dean is sad because the Iron Giant is, gone. So now we have the epilogue of the movie. Hogarth actually gets one of the pieces from the giant that the general recovered. It was actually the only part that they could get. He brings it home, and in the middle of the night, this piece starts making this noise, and this is one of my favorite scenes in movie history. See, earlier on in the movie, there was a scene where you could see that the Iron Giant can literally fix himself. You're like, wow, that's really cool. So now this little piece of the giant, is making beep, beep, this noise by the window. Hogarth opens the window, he's like, see you later. The piece rolls away, and you see, like, it's going through the clouds. And you see somewhere in Iceland, it's just snow everywhere, and you see the leg just hopping, and the little, rolling piece. In the last shot in the movie, you see the head of the Iron Giant wake up, and you see him smile, and boom, cut to black. It's one of my favorite scenes in movie history. The Iron Giant is one of those movies that I know forwards and backwards. I know every single line in the movie. And one of the cool things about this movie is that, yeah, it's an animated movie, but there are no, like, talking animals or no bullshit like that. It's so grounded in reality. That's what really puts it up there with any other big epic action movie ever. In fact, I've actually been saying this for a while. I would like to see a live-action remake of this movie. Would it be as good as this one? No, absolutely not, but I want to see it anyways. And some people who don't know any better say they want to see a sequel to this movie, and I'm always like, no, no, no! This movie doesn't get a sequel. Go read some fan fictions or something. I will repeat the Iron Giant's praises to everybody who lives. If you have a pulse, you will love this movie. It's my favorite animated movie of all time. It's one of my favorite movies ever made. For all intents and purposes, this is Brad Bird's masterpiece. And okay, now for the extra scenes. The signature edition has 2 extra scenes that were not originally released in theaters. And the scenes were really good. They added to the story. I'm actually going to put a link in the description to a video of the deleted scenes from the Iron Giant. And each of these scenes have little introductions by Brad Bird. And so if you watch 2 of these scenes, you'll know which ones are the extra scenes that were added. You'll be right about that. So watch that video. Watch this movie. It's coming out in Blu-ray in March, and I'm going to be first in line for that shit. So the Iron Giant, have you seen it? If you haven't, go watch it. And then come back to answer the question, what is your favorite scene from the film? Your favorite scene, your favorite line, your favorite character, just what do you love about this movie? Whatever you want to say about this movie, go ahead and leave a comment. And don't forget to subscribe.
Super.